much for being here with me in this weird virtual room.
Sure. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth trying to plan this for a minute. So I'm excited to finally be able to talk to y'all. So can you all just introduce yourselves for the audience?
Well, I'm Joe. I play guitar, do vocals.
I'm Dan. I play the drums and nothing else.
I am Connor, and I play the bass. Maybe
Hell yeah.
Keyboard. One time
And
or two.
The keyboard one time, you said?
A time or two.
A time or two. Usually when people say a time or two, I think that means usually more than a time or two. It's like a few, right?
Yeah, never live, but we've done some recordings.
Word.
That's good.
Well, the multi-talented Ricos, I'm really happy to talk to y'all. And my first question is, what's your favorite potato chip alternative? Like, you got plantain chips, kale chips, carrot chips, sweet potato chips. What's your go-to?
I remember when I was living around Temple, I every day would get salted plantain chips from the corner store, and that was kind of like my go-to snack.
I love that. That's my shit.
Yeah.
The sticks. Does that count?
Yeah,
totally.
Veggie sticks.
That's in the chip family.
That for sure. 100% the veggie sticks.
Oh, that's a good answer. Maybe kale chips. I don't really eat kale chips.
We
I
have
don't
you
even know.
have you had the
Dang, that's a good question, but I don't have a good answer.
the seaweed chips are really good. It's like they're like super super thin.
No, I've never had them, but I had them when I was much younger, and I didn't like them. I don't know. I'm a big salt and vinegar chip.
Me too. The ones that hurt.
Yeah, the ones that are so salty that just
they destroy your tongue. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you like this is a little bit of a digression. You like challenge chips, or hot Cheetos or something like that? Or is that
I like any and all. Yeah, I like there's a brand of kettle jalapeno chips that I like.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, I never had the ones that come in a singular box.
Yeah,
right. But the hot Cheetos for sure.
For sure.
That's baseline.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I've never had a ghost pepper or anything related.
That's too much of a challenge for me. So first of all, can I just the first thing I want to ask is, how did the Ricos project sort of get started? I know that y'all were playing in some bands together before. I know Joe and Dan, you were playing in some bands before. So how did that morph into the Ricos?
Well, it's been kind of dating back since high school, thinking about making music seriously, whatever that means, for the first time. It was kind of just songs were developing in a very personal place back during that time, and just didn't really have anyone to share this experience with and play and kind of form a band from. So it was just years went by where I had these songs and really nothing to do with them, and they kind of went on the back burner for a while, and then moved back to Philly in 2016, and I was playing a few groups, one being drums for Dan's band at the time called Sublayman, and we had a pretty good run.
Yeah. Yeah, we did it pretty hard for a year or two, playing all the gigs. But yeah, and that we kind of, at the end of that, when that was going nowhere, Joe was just all right, I think the first thing we did was I played tambourine for a show at your old house.
Yeah.
Well, he played guitar, and it was horribly awkward. It was the most stressful 3 minutes of my entire life. And then maybe some time went by, and then we started doing it for real, just the two of us for a little bit.
Yeah.
Played a few shows, just two. Then Connor came aboard, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. It was a show at Sound Hole. We were playing with it's a really cool guy named Scott Yoder from Seattle, who does kind of this glam rock, very theatrical thing. And we're also playing with Ian from Japanther's new band called Howardian, and it was kind of just like testing the waters, like playing these songs with like the only resources we had, which was guitar and drums. And I remember it was after the set, Connor came up and like we knew each other like
We
before.
lived down the street from each other.
Yeah, like we were basically neighbors. And I remember it was kind of just the formal like, oh hey, nice set, and
Let me be in your band.
yeah, basically. And then it was kind of just going from there.
Yeah,
That's lovely.
It changed it up so well too. There's so many dull moments of a 2-piece where there's just drums and guitar, and like as loud as you can hit that cymbal, it didn't matter. Like there's just something like dead air every time there'd be like a lead or like a solo-esque type of playing, and then for sure the bass filled it all out wonderfully.
I feel like most 2 pieces are like buck wild bands.
Yeah, right.
Bands that just push it.
Yeah,
Totally.
the indie sound didn't really work as a 2-piece, so
Yeah, like the shoegazy, like big, like fuzzed out indie rock kind of sound.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
was that? I'm sorry. Was that sound sort of what you were going for at first, or was this first show a lot cleaner in tone?
I think I was running through like a bass.
No,
amp that
yeah,
was, like,
definitely not.
It was
I feel like-
yeah, because it was like really learning a lot of stuff along the way in regards to like not just like tone, but like this idea of like having the song like in our heads and then just like translating like a live version of that. Like we had to learn a lot of things like the hard way. Like, well, I guess it's like any band has played like a handful of like bad shows, but we've definitely done that.
Yeah, it was never. I mean, Joe likes to play loud, so it's always a little bit fuzzed out, no matter what is happening live for sure.
Yeah.
Where I actually have to hit harder than I think, which is always shocking, but fun.
Exactly. I agree. Like those kinds of things where you're pushing each other sound like the most fun.
Yeah,
For sure. I know the initial names for the project it wasn't the Ricos. It was Los Ricos or just Rico. What was the evolution of the band name? Can you tell me about that?
Well, the trajectory it was singular in high school because it was kind of a matter of like liking how the word looked, and I guess so. It started as Rico, and then I don't really like looking back. I don't know what inspired Los Ricos, but it was kind of just going with that for a while, not really identifying with that, all while realizing this was becoming more of like a plural thing where like other people were getting involved. So it kind of made sense to be the Ricos, kind of just going on this idea of like a kind of like traditionalist like band identity. I guess I thought it might be cool, but we might change it again. Who knows?
Totally. Yeah, nothing's set in stone.
so,
So yeah, like Joe, like you said, these were like you were sitting on these songs for a while. You were writing songs for quite a bit. Can you just tell me more about why you felt like, or I don't know what? Well, actually, let me ask you this: had you written like a ton of songs before, or were these songs some of the first ones you'd written?
Well, it was like kind of dating back to the first time really having this idea of like songwriting in general, because it was like dating back in high school. It's just like a matter of doing it for fun. Like, hey, you need a drummer, I'll do it. Just like any opportunity to play. That was like the first time kind of stepping back and thinking like it being like more of like a conscious process and kind of like I said before, like figuring out the hard way what works, like what doesn't. And it's instead of just abandoning these old ideas that kind of like were the formative material for like what we're working on now, I figured just be working with what I did years ago and just keep improving it, and just not letting it go to waste in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for like really harnessing the creative output you've had like historically. Like I don't know. I think I feel in a weird way that the songs that you write like when you were a lot younger are really not so, at least in most cases, because I can't paint in generalities, but are really in most cases very similar to the stuff in style that people write more recently. Like I feel like the aging process with songwriting is a lot slower than the aging process in real life. I don't know if that rings true with you as well.
Yeah, and it's just like also, this might be a hot take, but like nostalgia's sake, kind of just like thinking of where I was writing these songs and how it's like certain things like still ring true, and then over time, like it's, for an example, like certain lyrics kind of like take on a new meaning, and I don't know. It's been
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, like a matter of checking it off the list. Like this song is done, even though I wrote it when I was like 19. But so that's been a good feeling, actually, like getting this like group, this just like pile of material that's been like sitting on the back burner, kind of just like getting it out while we're kind of like working on new stuff at the same time.
Absolutely, I love that. So something I asked you about like before we started recording is that it's effectively the three of you running Utica Records. Is that correct?
To some extent.
No Dan.
No Dan.
Drums, nothing else. That's it.
Yeah, Dan's kind of just like besides the percussion stuff, he's been our spiritual guide. Kind of just,
he's our angel investor.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know that.
No, but no monetary.
Yeah, but I have some bad news for you guys.
Yeah. Like that's news to me. No. So was the process of starting Utica Records, was that sort of at the same time as getting more serious about the Ricos and becoming more of a fully fledged band?
Well, it's like it kind of feels coincidental because the label kind of started as like a pet project like 6 years ago when I first started college and thinking seriously about this insane idea of like making money from music or just like the business around that. And it started then. We did 2 releases that essentially went nowhere. And I thought, all right, I don't want to do this. And it essentially gave up on the label for years. And then it might have just been like a matter of like boredom and kind of just like reevaluating what to do during this whole pandemic. And we had a lot of free time and either old music that we put out or like stuff we were working on, and just figured like, all right, we could funnel all of this through a specific project and kind of just brought Utica Records back to life and have been trying to develop it since then, kind of from not like a selfish point of view, but like a personal place, kind of being the Voltron behind the Ricos, but then realizing it's like we're, I guess, like fortunate enough to know as many artists that we do, that we could kind of just build a circle and kind of work with other artists. Like our second guitarist, Eric, he has a lot of projects and stuff, and we've been putting that out. It's just been like a matter of like having this concrete thing for us and our friends to kind of just focus not all, but like most of our like creative endeavors into like one specific thing.
Totally. Yeah, so it seems like, I would replace the word selfish with, self-fulfillment. It's a really exciting thing to do, to like, to be, helping your friends put out records. And then beyond self-fulfillment, it's really like, serving your friends as well, I think. So I love that. I think that's great. So speaking of Eric, who I also want to mention that his project is Motel 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what was when did Eric join the band, and what was that process like? If I'm correct, that was after your first EP?
Yeah. I guess you could say that really started around August, because getting technical and like breaking the fourth wall, we moved in together around there. And I don't want to say essentially like forced him into the band, but kind of just toying with this idea of like we've jammed together and like thought maybe it'd be fun to do like in this realm of like this specific band, and it's kind of developed into like, hey, do you want to practice with us this one day? Hey, do you want to record stuff? So it's how we've been referring to him is like in terms of vowels. He's kind of like the Y, where it's like
sometimes Y.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's me, Dan, Connor, and then sometimes Eric. So
gotcha.
More kind of like I don't want to say session player because he's definitely more than that, but it's kind of
he's like a featured member.
Yeah, because he has like a lot on his plate, and he's kind of wanting to focus on that. But like whenever he can, like he helps us out, which is great.
Well, similar to what you were telling me about yourself, like it's playing in someone else's band versus like, your own songwriting. So it seems like a similar deal from what I can tell.
Because he's also in the process of starting an additional band with our other roommate, Thomas, called Florida Purgatory. And all I'm going to say is like, I hear them recording and like practicing, and whenever that comes to fruition, it's going to be cool.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I want to talk next about Hidden Fortress and your experience recording your last EP that like just came out in the last few months. And that EP's What Next for the listener. If you haven't listened to it, you should really listen to it. It's awesome. But you recorded it at Hidden Fortress in Brewery Town right here in Philly with Tom Kelly and Kieran Ferris. Can you tell me about what that experience was like and like what your relationship with those two is like?
Yeah. Well, the whole recording, that was so much fun. I mean, it's like, that was kind of like this whole dream scenario where it's like, they have like a very DIY setup because it's like the warehouse they live in, like whether it's called Pud 2, Hidden Fortress, has a few names. But it kind of has like this like magic treehouse vibe. It's like, because they're all like contractors and stuff, and like they like built all the control room, bedrooms and stuff. So it's like really cool going into that, or like having gone into that space and just like doing what we were doing in this place where like people we either like look up to or doing it too, So it was just like really, really nice, especially like thinking of like how we kind of met was through shows and stuff. So it was like cool to see that like develop into kind of like not professional, but like kind of like this like working thing together. But
yeah, they're really good at what they do.
Yeah, because they have like amazing setup and just like all this cool equipment and mics and stuff, and it was just like really cool, just like being in this like big room and doing it where it's like before it's kind of doing it like wherever we could, whether it was like a basement or like a bedroom, just like with like more minimal recording setup. So it was like cool, kind of just like toying with this idea of like maximalist rock and just like doing this big production with like big amps and like microphones and like go in the control room and just like this whole feeling of like making a rock record, which is like a new phenomenon for us, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a unique space. Like even just looking at it through pictures online, because I've never been there, but it looks like just such a unique and, obviously we've heard in the records, a crazy sounding space. So, that's such a blessing. I also want to mention, shout out my professor Ryan Schwab, who mastered the record.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the GOAT. So, that's that just goes to show that like, you're working with the best.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too, because obviously with COVID stuff, we didn't have like a chance to meet, but just like coordinating that while, if you allow me to nerd out, like while I guess this was like a month after he did the 106 Point Never new album, so we're like, let's get this guy to do it. Not because of that, but just like thought that'd be like you said, he's like amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's what it comes down to, is like with any mixer, any recording or any mixer, any recording engineer, any producer, anyone, like, oh, I love that thing they did. I want my stuff to sound like anything close to that would be phenomenal. Even if it's like, I feel that way like with certain projects, like working with a certain engineer, even if that project that I really liked was like nowhere close to mine. So like I could hear like a 106 Point Never or something and say, okay, if you like accomplished that, I wonder what you could accomplish for like the stuff that me and my buddies are working on. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. So I love that space, and I don't know. That's something I want to be more exposed to, is recording in unique spaces like that. So I'm jealous.
Yeah, because they're doing like a lot of really cool stuff, because they have their own groups, I guess. Tom and I think Kieran's in Snoozer now too. But they have Snoozer. Tom and Kieran also have a band called Pet. Like they're just like all like involved with like a lot of like cool music stuff. So it's like cool to work with people that make stuff in like a similar vein, kind of. But I don't know.
Absolutely, and people who have been to your shows too, and I think have a good idea of what your aesthetic is and what you're going after.
Yeah,
like I think that's always a valuable thing. Someone within the scene.
Yeah.
So speaking of the, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
They've heard us practice just because they have a practice space too.
Yeah.
That we've played there a lot.
Yeah,
so they've heard the songs a lot. So
is that a space you were like utilizing a lot?
We were a while ago, but we kind of stopped during COVID. I guess back in like, I don't know. Well, Eric and I were using it too a while ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were using that.
Yeah, but yeah, they definitely they're very. I think they're pretty familiar with the songs, which is definitely helpful, like you said.
Definitely, working with friends, I think, is the best thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of the scene, I want to ask about some shows you've played. You said your first show was at the Sound Hole, which I think is really, really sick. But you've played at like legendary Philly DIY venues like Philomoka, like the Pharmacy, like the aforementioned Sound Hole. Are there any shows in any of those DIY venues that you'd like really, really love to relive?
There's one that comes to mind just because, like, I recall
2 of them are gone now.
Well, yeah, but like there was one show at the DIY house I used to live at around Temple. The spot was called Power Tower, and I think this was like the second to last show we did. And it was us, this band from Florida called Sleeping Pills.
Oh yeah,
that one was really fun.
Yeah, and
that
then
was the first one the 3 of us all did together.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was. It
That
definitely
would
was.
be the Italians.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was with Sleeping Pills, this band from Italy called BBC, and my favorite guitarist ever, David Vasilati. He plays in this band called Merchandise, and if you don't already know about Merchandise, go listen to Merchandise. But I think he did say that like in the crowd, like he was just like, or it was like after one of our songs, I was just like, this is so cool playing like with these people, and he was like, we're not worthy, and that was like basically like what I felt like embarrassing myself and said, I guess, essentially embarrassing myself in front of my favorite guitarist. So it'd be like nice to relive that, to like play a better show, I guess. But,
yeah, I mean, we didn't practice as the 3 of us even that much at that point. I feel like. I remember. I don't remember being bad, which means it was mediocre at best. You know, like I don't remember
average.
I don't remember anything bad happening. I remember looking around at the end and being like, okay, we did it.
That was
like,
good.
that worked. It totally was fine.
But you did like the first time, like the 3 of you played, and you were like, that worked. Like, there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah,
it did not work.
Yeah, it was cool to kind of see like the whole first full band idea, and just like, and not a perfect version of that, but like realizing like, oh wait, this could kind of work going forward with this thing,
Yeah, because Joe and I had been practicing and playing a little bit already, so the amount of practice we needed with Connor was minimal, just kind of adding another piece. And yeah, I mean, it obviously, like I said earlier, just filling that dead space, it made it so much different. It makes it so much like more full. I mean, yeah, it was definitely a game changer.
For sure, yeah. That's phenomenal. And so speaking of like adding more members, like after Eric was added to the group, or added as a recurring member to the group, you recorded What Comes Next with Eric. Is that correct?
Yeah, he did. I guess a few parts on each song. Like I know he did a lot with the bonus track Brand New Memory. That was along with like some of the lead stuff. That was also him playing violin. Like I was blown away that night. I remember I didn't even know he played or had one, but just like pulled it out and then kind of made the song what it was. So yeah, along with like being in that live realm, he's really played like a huge part in the recording process, because I think along with Connor, he basically like engineered that song all by himself and really hauled ass and like did a fucking awesome job. But
Absolutely, sounds phenomenal, and yeah, that track is incredible.
that's
Yeah,
or
I'm sorry, you go.
not to cut you off, but like that's like the most like ironic part is like that's the bonus track was like more well received than like the initial digital single. So that was cool to see. Kind of like it was people getting excited for like that along with what comes next too. But I don't know.
Totally, and for the record, what comes next, I think, also sounds phenomenal. I like, I you know, I played that track, what comes next, like on my radio show a little bit ago, and like, yeah, I don't know, there's just like the space and the effects on there, and like the sort of fuzzed out production, just really, really, I don't know, feels like diving into a pool of fuzz tone. I love it.
That was kind of the idea of like
Reverb.
Of reverb, yeah.
kind of just like I remember having this argument like in the studio, just like it was getting to like that last part of the song, kind of like the heavy, slow, whatever you could call it. That was kind of just like toying with this idea of like taking a more normal sounding like pop rock song and going like in surreal territory, and that's like an idea we're really going to try and like play with our next release, where it's kind of just like constructing like very straightforward like guitar rock, but kind of just like getting more creative with that while still being in that place, you know. But
Sure,
we're still figuring it out.
Yeah, of course, with like taking that you know, that concoction of the three of you, sometimes four of you, and then sending it to that surreal place. I'm really, really excited to hear that. So a sort of a segue, I have another question about gear. So, and this one's for the gearheads out there. Is there a guitar pedal or amp or another piece of gear that especially inspires you to create for the Ricos? Or if you don't want to answer, is it like kind of like a secret sauce kind of deal? You don't want to share your secret, which is also cool.
I don't even know. I guess it's kind of like building on this idea that we already talked about, just like learning as we go. It's like we're not like we have the songs and we're kind of just like in the moment figuring out how it fleshes out like via tone and gear and stuff. But I think a lot of what comes next was like making, at least personally, like making the switch from I was running through like a Marshall half stack for like a lot of the first shows and everything. And it was kind of like coming to the realization like that was like a little like it worked, but like it was like a little too crunchy. So it was like during that recording process, I kind of like made the switch to like a lot of like Fender amps and just stayed with that territory, if you could call it that. But I don't think we ran that many pedals. It was just like
I mean if there's like one secret sauce for the fuzz tone, we could give that away.
Is it your pedal?
It's that brown pedal, yeah.
Oh no. Well, we did use that.
We used that with. Did we use that with the chorus?
No, with all the crazy leads on What Comes Next.
Mm-hmm.
We ran that through this really small Line 6 amp. It was Eric's amp, and we put it on insane mode. So, because it was just like thinking like, yeah, where it's like this part should be like more prominent and crazy. So it was just a matter of like trying to find like what would like feed back the best and kind of just like playing with sustain. And we kind of did like trial and error with like some pedals, but then realized like we could just do it with this little crappy amp and then just also work. But
absolutely, that is amazing to me. Like, I'm one of those people who I'm kind of a gearhead, and it, you know, sometimes I get into YouTube holes and I'm like, I can only get this sound if I have this like, you know, $500 fuzz pedal from London or whatever. Like, and that's totally not true. You can get the craziest, most unique tones with a Line 6 amp, with a practice amp or something like that. Like, you don't need a like, you know, crazy gear. You can get an insane and incredible sounding sound with something a lot smaller and simpler.
Yeah, because that was kind of a recent realization, at least personally. I can't really afford to be a gearhead right now, so it's like a matter of
Same.
working with what we have. But that applies to like this whole creative whatever, kind of just like realizing the resources we do have and kind of just making the most out of it with that, you know.
Yeah,
Now we're
I think.
carrying a Marshall half stack around,
Yeah, also.
which is just the worst. I mean, it's
Right.
there's no good to come of it, honestly.
Especially if you're already carrying like a kick drum down the stairs or something like that, you know.
Well, that's a good point. That's my inspiration. I like to play other people's stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like to. Well, of course, I don't like to bring a drum set, but every time I get behind a different drum set, I like when they're all weird, and for some reason, I feel like I play better at shows with like crappy, dingy drum sets. Because like drumming, it's something like, all right, I'm gonna tilt it like this and have the hi hat like perfectly like this, but at the show, you can't really do that. Even if you bring your whole setup, like it's never gonna work. It's like going in there. It's just like it's like a very diet adrenaline rush. Being like, what's gonna happen? Like, am I gonna miss the snare? Well, at what point will my sticks drop? Will I be able to grab another one? Like, there's like I like that. That gets me hyped for shows. Like, how crappy is this drum set gonna be? I like that.
There's a certain element of like adaptation that I think really, really is creatively stimulating. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it too. Like,
Yeah.
on the fly, or even like same with guitar, using someone else's amp, or like a house, like something that changes your tone up like that much, and you like it's so easy to get in the gearhead mindset of like I need this sound, but as a guitar player, like I sold all my pedals. I have a tuner pedal. And I just like to play whatever's there, like with one guitar, and try to like see what can I do it? Can I volume control it? Can I finagle? Can I be good enough to just like rock it? And yes.
I was gonna say I think the answer is almost always yes.
Yes.
Barring some crazy circumstances.
Yeah, we've had some. Yeah, I knocked an amp over once at a show. I remember in New York, and a beer also fell off the stage, maybe at the same time, and broke. It was glass. There's a whole earlier in the day, I got a citation in the park for having an open container. It was a whole day. I mean, it was.
Oh no, yeah. That's a lot.
I dropped my pick several times, and that was
only when on tour.
No, this was with us. When one of the other times we played the Bowery Electric, it was just a whole day, man. Like it was really bad. But that's the show. Those are shows you talk about. We still talk about that, the bad ones.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a great segue. Is that something I've heard is that playing like indie rock in New York City can be especially in Manhattan, can be a really weird thing, or just sometimes an awkward thing. What was that experience like? Was it fun? Was it weird? Was it weird and fun?
It was
Manhattan was pretty weird.
It was strange. Because it was like that promoter was like essentially doing us a favor. That was like kind of the Spirit State run was like I don't know if it was like intentional, but we essentially tricked a lot of venues into thinking we're a lot more popular than we are. So that was like
that's how you do it.
Exactly. But yeah, it was a very strange show, if you could call it that, because we don't really know anyone in Manhattan, so we're playing by ourselves right before this comedy showcase.
Yeah.
So
it was a weird night.
Yeah, it was cool. Like we played like a solid set,
freestyle comedy,
and
Monday nights at Bowery Electric.
Yeah, but it was like fine, but they're just like setting up the comedy show like while we're playing and stuff. But the major takeaway from that night was they had like a secret special guest for the comedy showcase, and it was Todd Barry, who I don't know if you're familiar with, and because that was the thing, I was freaking out. I was like, Todd Barry, this is amazing.
Oh yeah,
and they didn't know who Todd Barry was.
I only have a small recollection of who he is now in my head.
They
were like setting up. They didn't even know. I think when we got there, they're like, "What's up?" We had like go find a sound guy, and it's such a tiny room. It's like very like it's wide if anything, so it's like awkward to even have anybody in there. It was kind of a blur of the show. I don't quite remember, like if people were even.
I think we had like 4 people there. Maybe we
It
got
was
some
2.
good.
It was
got some-
JJ and Sierra, and then no,
No, Adam was there.
Didn't
oh yeah,
did
Adam took the
Jackie,
picture.
Did
Yeah.
Jackie come?
She came late,
That's always yep.
but
We got some good photos. From
I was
that
gonna say the
show.
photos are the
Yeah,
memory
from
of that is we have
specific
good
show.
photos.
Yeah,
Honestly, that makes it all worth it,
Every-
in my opinion.
photos.
we didn't get any other really good photos from that run.
oh yeah, I guess
That was the best.
In black and white. It was
Yeah.
sick.
Brooklyn was pretty fun though.
Yeah, that was fun because we played with this.
Played with Zeke.
Yeah, it was. The lineup was.
And that venue was cool too.
Yeah.
It was this producer based in. I think they're in Brooklyn now, but they go by Tobias. That's their name. And Zeke Ultra. So that was like cool playing. No, we played 2 shows with Zeke, but that was like one of the cooler ones because it was like on the road or whatever in like
Yeah.
the venue. And
I also just want to quickly shout out Zeke Ultra because we have my friend Iwana from the station. Her DJ name is Iguana. Just interviewed Zeke Ultra, so just shout out Iwana and Zeke Ultra.
he's the best. So if you aren't already listening to Zeke Ultra, go listen to Zeke Ultra. This is a
Hard agree.
official endorsement.
Yeah. One other show I want to ask about because these are people I know. You played the Asbury Lanes with Shred Flintstone.
Yes.
Yes.
That's way cool.
Yeah. I think that day was
It's a wild day.
obviously a very memorable day.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was a good show.
The cool,
It's very
thing,
sick.
the cool and maybe awkward and weird thing about that venue is that you finish a song, and then you hear the crashing of bowling pins in the silence, or like the midst of some clapping, and you just hear a crack of bowling pins. Like, yeah, this is a bowling alley. Also, it's a little bit weird. And we also got a really good green room set up.
Oh yeah, they had.
They gave us
food for
pounds of fried food for free.
That
Woo.
was awesome.
Dope.
That's incredible.
To go back there for that.
Yeah, for right for
For
that.
that green room and to go to the beach.
Yeah, Connor went in the ocean in his jeans. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. The funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
They have a bathing suit.
So, man walking out, you think, okay, he's wearing shorts. Nope, those are full blown jeans, and they're just slapping around, just wet. It was hilarious.
They hug your legs
It's
like,
great.
when you go in the water with your jeans on.
It's a great day.
Was this before the set? Like, were you playing with wet jeans?
It was like on stage with
I don't-
white jeans. I remember
I
I played.
I
I
think
had
you
it.
changed.
I changed because I had an extra
Oh.
pair of clothes, and we were going to my parents' house the next night.
I remember I played in the bowling shoes, and I really wanted
Oh,
to take
yeah.
the bowling shoes with me.
I think we were, and we had to stop.
Yeah,
We
it was
were
like
bowling.
they're
and
like
then they're like,
like come play your set. And
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's like a really, really fun space. I only went there once, and I think it was before it was reopened with Live Nation or whatever that deal was. But
or you go.
I was just gonna say it was a fun. I was in like high school or something. It was a lot of fun.
Because I was gonna say we booked that show under the impression it was the venue it was before like the whole like renovation thing. Because we went, and it's like this luxurious, like big, giant, whatever. It was like
Bruce Springsteen played there.
yeah, it was just like it's since the
And so
renovation.
did
It's
we.
amazing. Yeah.
We are on bar. On
Bruce,
bar.
Ricos,
They're
Jersey
about the
legends.
same.
Yeah, I agree. And so one of the last shows I want to ask about is you played a show in London. Is that true?
Oh yeah, it was kind of just this solo thing because I did a term abroad at this school called Goldsmiths University, and at that school they have this guy Richard Greenan who he has his own label and like runs like a separate label specifically for students like studying music or whatever. And
Very cool.
it was for, I think it was either 1 or 2 weeks. It was this empty storefront was like essentially turned into a record store, and he was running that, like selling records from his label and like other labels while putting together like events like with the students and stuff. Like I actually have, this is one of his groups called Hesitation, but that's,
Yeah, that album's good.
yeah, it's like, that's Richard. He's very nice, makes really cool music. But anyway,
Shout out Richard.
yeah, he was nice enough to not only like put me on that show, but he also recorded my set. So it's like I think one or two songs from that set are going to be like bonus tracks on our next release. But yeah, that show is really cool because I remember I played with this artist named Rosie Alina, who she is like absolutely amazing vocalist, and I think like is in sounds like hot gossip, but in a relationship with the drummer from Black Midi, who's also
Oh, word.
really cool dude. So it was cool like playing with those folks.
There's some hot goss.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
But-
Like, entertainment tonight.
Yeah, Rosie was really nice. Yeah, London was super cool. It was kind of a tease being there only for like 3 months, but it was cool kind of just like getting there, meeting people, making certain connections. Because I remember that was where I met Barney too, my buddy Barney, who did the artwork for Brand New Memory. Like he's the one
Gotcha.
with crazy scribbles and stuff.
The crazy like metal looking artwork.
Yeah.
Nice. Very sick. Yeah, that's such a blessing. I'm also jealous of that too. Yeah, so before I wrap this up, I just want to thank you so much for chatting with me and for again being in this Zoom room with me. I also want to shout out another photographer who took some photos of you. Jake Kasperick is a good buddy.
Oh boy, whoa, that's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Jake is incredibly talented and took some wonderful photos of y'all. But the last question I want to ask you guys is there anything that listeners should be expecting from you soon? What's coming up next for the Ricos?
What comes next?
What comes next? Pun intended, fully intended.
So we're working on another EP, and it's as of right now we're probably going to be calling it the Dream Machine EP. It's like not like a concept album, but kind of like a miniature version of that. But it's kind of like crescendo rock, if that makes sense. Like we're kind of just like doing this. It's like thinking of like the whole history of the band. It's starting in like a very like kind of, for lack of a better word, like bedroom pop area, and then it developing more and more into like a rock band. It's like with the next release, it's going to be like kind of like a more, I guess, like inflated version of that. So it would just be like what comes next, like big rock songs, but kind of just like coming from the place where this all started. And we're gonna probably go crazy with like the whole promo stuff. It's like we're currently in the pre-production stage, if you could even call it that, for the first music video. That's like essentially going to be like a short film, and still have a lot to work, or like a lot of work to go on that. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're already like a lot of the stuff has been recorded also with Tom and Kieran at Hidden Fortress. It's just like a matter of like going back into the studio, finishing it, and then because it's I guess you could say this for everyone. It's just like what planning things is like such a strange process now, where it's like getting to the point where we think like maybe we could plan this release around a time where like shows are possible again, but then again, no one knows when that's actually going to be. So
Right.
kind of just like when we have the time to do it, figuring out like that the final recording stuff, just like who we're going to do artwork with, like who's going to take photos, just like all the promo stuff. We're kind of just like in that area.
That's exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's tough to make any sort of concrete plans, like, you know, even if it feels like the tail end of the pandemic, like it's tough to do anything concretely and book anything solidly, like a show or anything. But I don't know. I'm really excited to hear, pun intended, what comes next. And if you haven't listened to What Comes Next, the EP, please check it out. It's on Spotify. It's on Bandcamp. If you're looking to purchase music, purchase it on Bandcamp. Support local artists. And yeah, thank you again, all three of you, for being here. This has been such a nice afternoon chatting with y'all. So I don't know. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now and then I begin to feel a little bit lonelier.